There was a hit called by a high-ranking gang member on the opposite side of that opposing rapper's gang.
We just heard pow, 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 and they think no, da-da-da-da-da-da, and
They decided to go over into a rival gang stronghold and shoot a music video in a place that he knew he should not have been.
That occurred on the set of a music video featuring popular Atlanta rapper Lil Baby.
And in the subsequent days, we saw homicides and shootings, and ultimately the deaths of 2 children as a result of his cowardly actions. And you know who you are.
Lil Baby's situation may be deeper than rap, and it's seeming like it may take more than 4 pockets full for him to get out. Is this what they was talking about when they said whatever Wham says goes? Man. If you new, make sure y'all hit that notification bell, that like, share, comment, and subscribe. Grab a seat, we finna dig deep. What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your host Jay, and man, y'all know we gotta dig deep into this Lil Baby situation. Now, Lil Baby has definitely been trending and making headlines, and no, it's definitely not for his music. Although he did just release his latest album, Wham, that did go #1. But today, man, we definitely gotta dig deep into this latest situation. Now, Lil Baby's name has definitely been circulating after he had a video shoot that was shot last year that was actually shot up. But here's the interesting thing. He actually shot this video in his ops hood. Even more interesting is his ops that's actually turning them in and telling on them now. Let that sink in. And before we dig deep into the situation, ask yourself this: has hip hop just gone too far? Let's dig.
By our actually very brand new special agent in charge of the Atlanta field office, Paul Brown. Welcome, sir. I believe this is your first week here in Atlanta. Glad to have you with us, already hitting the ground running, and the long-standing support the Atlanta Police Department has had from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Also joined today by Major Pete Malecki, who is the commander of our Major Crime Section, as well as Major Ralph Woolfolk, who oversees our Violent Crime Interdiction Section. The last time we gathered here as a police department with the media, we were asking for help from the community to be able to bring to custody the murders of 2 13-year-olds in our city. I met just a moment ago with the mother of one of those young men, Michelle Freeman, and we were talking about the journey she's been on. The morning that she lost her son, 13-year-old friend of his, and an 11-year-old that was injured that day. And they were celebrating a birthday party when gang violence and gun violence found its way to Spark Street. And Miss Freeman knows that she has the condolence and the support of the Atlanta Police Department. It was there on July the 2nd and continues today. We made a commitment when we stood before you last time on Spark Street that we were going to identify the murders in that case. And not only were we going to identify the murders in that case, we were going to bring them to justice. And we're here today to give you an update on everyone being brought to justice that committed those crimes. Those crimes were just not against the Freeman family or the Davis family. Those crimes were not just against the Oakland City community or here on Spark Street. These crimes were against all of Atlanta. Because when gun violence touches this neighborhood and can claim the lives of 2 13-year-olds, it touches every Atlanta neighborhood. And since those early morning hours, this police department has not tired in identifying who committed those crimes and bringing them to justice. And I want to acknowledge a number of the units that have been working since that morning and that have not stopped. Our homicide team, our gang unit, an analyst working out of public safety headquarters, the district attorney's office, and the FBI. And these individuals that committed the crime here on July 2nd were dangerous individuals that, if allowed to remain free on the streets of Atlanta, Georgia, were going to use guns again to harm. These individuals cannot just be taken off the street without risk to law enforcement. And thanks to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, our Apex unit, our ACE unit, and our fugitive units, we have taken in custody the last 2 individuals that we have sought for this horrible crime. And we couldn't do that without the community. Because if you remember the last time we were here, we were going door to door on every home in this neighborhood asking for the community support. So for everyone that has provided a tip, that has called Crime Stoppers, for everyone that has worked with our investigators, I want to thank you. Because everyone has a role in keeping Atlanta safe. I'm going to turn the microphone now over to the special agent in charge of the FBI field office. And Zach Brown, I do want to thank you for all the work that your team has been providing. Long before you arrived in the city, we've had a strong partnership with the FBI. And for us to be able to stand here and tell the Atlantans we have removed 2 more dangerous murders off the street, we want to thank you for your role in making that happen. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so let's dig. Now, this is a whole sad situation. 2 13-year-olds lost their life, not even the intended targets, all because an adult chose to make a decision. And not just one adult, but a group of different adults came and made decisions, ordered by another adult. Has hip-hop gone too far? And now, we just watched the entire YSL trial. We watched everybody get charged, everybody get pointed out. We watched friends turn on friends. We watched the ops tell on each other. We watched all of this right here with the same trial. And again, what do we see? The same individuals' names who were being brought up in the previous YSL trial being brought up with their own. Now, don't forget, there was this piece of document, this paperwork right here, that actually showed there was an attack from the Fulton County prosecutor, the DA's office, going after all of these different rap groups. Now, a lot of people thought that was a joke, but if you look at the history of the Fulton County prosecutor, her track record speaks for itself. If you look at what she's done, the track record plus the previous Ricos that she's had, and compare it to the list, let that sink in. Let's dig.
Thank you. I'm Paul Brown, the Special Agent in charge of FBI Atlanta's division. And it's, first and foremost, I want to offer my deepest condolences to the Davis and Freeman families. No family should have to bury their 13-year-old children. The FBI is here as part of our joint efforts with the Atlanta Police and other law enforcement partners to solve cases just like this. The FBI assisted this case. It's part of our ongoing commitment to APD to combat violent crime and gang violence that's plaguing our communities. Everyone should feel safe and secure in their community and their homes. Atlanta's violent crimes and gang squads work every day with APD and our other law enforcement partners in concert and through our Atlanta Metro Major Offenders Task Force and through our Atlanta Safe Streets Task Force to get violent criminals like Tredon, Crawford, and Ali Caldwell off the streets. We will continue to use every resource available, working with our partners to include the Atlanta Police Department to keep our community safe. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. I'm Major Pete Malecki. I'm over our major crime section. So as Chief Shearbaum stated, several weeks after this incident took place, we were out here holding a very similar press conference, and we were asking for the help from the community. In just a moment, I'm going to show you some pictures of 7 individuals that we were able to take into custody in conjunction with this tragic incident. I stood here and told you the story how on July 2nd, just after midnight of last year, we had 2 13-year-olds and 11-year-old celebrating the birthday of Lamont Fremont. He had just turned 13, and he got to experience about 30 minutes of being a teenager before his life was taken.
So let's do the math. 30 minutes? 30 minutes of being 13. Imagine that. 30 minutes of being 13. 7 individuals. Not children, not teenagers. 7 adults. 2 13-year-olds. 30 minutes. 13 years of age. Condolences, man, on the loss. Let's dig.
And when I turn it over to Major Woolfolk, he's going to discuss some of the investigative techniques and really the gang involvement and the gang ties that led to this incident taking place. But one thing I want to make absolutely clear, and I said it then and I'll say it again, these kids were innocent victims. So when we talk about the gang involvement, these 2 13-year-olds and this 11-year-old, they didn't have a gang involvement. We didn't have interactions with them as a police department. They were good kids in the community, and unfortunately, their futures, their lives were taken. So I do want to thank all the community members that gave us tips and information on this case. And while I can't say necessarily that one individual tip broke this thing open, each tip is like a little puzzle piece. And we took every one of those, glued them together, and we're able to thankfully bring this case to resolution. And I will say that even though we have made 7 arrests, we never stop working cases. So if anyone has more information, we would ask that you do bring that forward, provide that to us, and we will certainly investigate every detail of those tips. So right now we're going to show some images of the individuals that we have made arrests on. So 5 of these individuals we already had in custody, we had arrested. Some of them were in jail on previous charges not related to this. So once we establish probable cause, we're able to serve the jails in which they're housed with these arrest warrants. So the first one there is Mr. Sanders. I'm going to slip in. Richard Hollis. Reginald Thomas. Marcus Crawford. Mr. Mobley. Tredon Crawford, and Tredon is one of the individuals that we took into custody yesterday. And then the final 7th individual is Mr. Ali Caldwell. If you notice with these individuals, 2 of them share the same last name. It's because they are brothers. So it seems like there was some type of family history of gang activity, gang involvement, and unfortunately on the night of July 2nd, that escalated to 2 13-year-old children losing their lives. So I'm going to turn it over to Major Ralph Woolfolk, and he will discuss a little bit of the gang conflict and some of the investigative techniques and procedures that we used to get us here today. So thank you.
Thanks, Major. My name is Major Ralph Woolfolk of the Violent Crime Interdiction Section. And I first want to say the overall theme of this case is grown men playing gangster that left 2 of our children in graves and a community in fear. And we know in these communities that strength is about building community, not destroying it. And in this case, leaving 2 young people in their grave. I want to thank the community that was here with our investigation team from the inception of this incident. Out on the night of the incident, we not only received investigative assistance from this community, but we also saw a community that was full of compassion and love. Video evidence depicted several people in this community pouring out of their apartments, attempting to triage wounds, attempting to transport persons to the hospital, and making several 911 calls from this community that were used throughout our investigation that led ultimately, with their assistance, to some of the apprehensions in this case. I want to also thank the FBI, who has not only been an incredible partner to us throughout this investigation, but has also been a consistent partner to us throughout our fight, as Chief Shearbaum always says, against gangs, guns, and drugs. We have had a consistent partnership with the FBI that has aided us in suppressing our violent crime. And for our team members internally in the Atlanta Police Department that spent countless hours, investigative hours, a tandem approach, collaborative approach between homicide, between gangs, between our ACE unit, between our intelligence analysts, and several other internal units throughout the police department that spent countless hours working this case. I remember getting a call from the gang unit over 4th of July weekend asking to go up on a wiretap investigation. And subsequent to that call, the next 48 hours were spent on the phone with our district attorney's office, who was a great support to us throughout this investigation and trying to stand that T3 up. And through that investigation, our gang unit sacrificed vacations. Our gang unit sacrificed time with loved ones, sacrificed relationships throughout the course of this investigation. In 5,424 man-hours from July 10th through October 30th, that was spearheaded by the Atlanta Police Gang Unit in a wire room to ultimately assemble key facts and elements leading us to where we are in the investigation. And for the investigation aspect of this, Lamont Freeman was allowed to be a 13-year-old for 27 minutes before gang violence ultimately took his life. Gang violence that was orchestrated by adults in our city. And cowardly acts of an Atlanta-based rapper that decided to go over into a rival gang stronghold and shoot a music video in a place that he knew he should not have been. And in the subsequent days, we saw homicides and shootings, and ultimately the deaths of 2 children as a result of his cowardly actions. And you know who you are. And I tell you that this team will work relentlessly to hold you and the persons that you are affiliated with responsible for those actions. Ultimately, there are components of this investigation that led back to a prison in the state of Georgia where an illegal phone, a contraband phone, was used to orchestrate these acts. There was a hit called by a high-ranking gang member on the opposite side of that opposing rapper's gang. And I'll tell you today, that gang was Goodfellas. Goodfellas Criminal Street Gang being one of the most hyper-violent gangs in the city of Atlanta. And we will pursue you relentlessly in making sure that we keep this city safe and suppressing violence throughout our city. And lastly, I'll say, as Major Malecki indicated, there is still a $50,000 reward that is on the table for additional information in relationship to this case. And our detectives and our officers, through all of the internal units and external units that you see here today, will be knocking on doors and working with this community that has been so resilient to collect additional information to continue to move this investigation forward. Thank you.
We'll now open up for questions. We'll start on that side with Tom Regan.
Yeah, well, these 3 juveniles, I mean, was it a crossfire situation? Were they targeted? Was there a gun battle between rival gang elements?
No, there was not. We do believe that the 3 juveniles, 2 who were killed, 1 who was injured, they were just outside on the steps celebrating a birthday party. We don't believe that they were the intended targets of that gunfire. But these individuals that we have shown indiscriminately opened fire on that apartment complex, resulting in these 3 children getting injured and killed.
And one quick follow-up question. The person who made the call for a hit from prison, that isn't one of the people who are already in jail. This is another individual we're talking about.
Yeah, the individual that orchestrated this from Hancock State Prison, he was already incarcerated.
So he's going to be charged in this, of course, too.
Yeah, he has been charged. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. The last 2 people, I know that you said that one of them was Traydon Crawford. Who was the other person that you just arrested? Okay. And so then, are we going to name the gang on the other side? You named the Goodfellas, but what's the name of the gang that's affiliated with this rapper that we're not naming?
Yeah, at this time, so not to compromise the integrity of this investigation, we will not be naming that gang. It is a hyper-violent hybrid street gang here in the city of Atlanta, and there's subsequent information that will follow in the upcoming preliminary hearing.
So these guys that were arrested were Goodfellas members?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's dig. Now this incident, Lil Baby's position in it was he went to the ops hood and shot a video. Complete disrespect. Even more interesting, he was already under investigation. Let's not forget when he did that whole 360, I'm turning my life around, Black Lives Matter, sit down with the actual mayor. trying to get out when the YSL Rico trial was going off, don't forget his name was still ringing. It was really buzzing, harder than dirt, right there on the same level with YSL. Now, even more interesting, in the YSL trial, you saw the prosecutor, the DA, there was a list that came out right here. All of these names are right here still involved to this day. A lot of them have actually been taken off the streets. So ask yourself this, who is the Goodfellas? Now, they refer to themselves on the paperwork as the mob, the Goodfellas. And the courts refer to them as who? 30 Deep, another gang from Wright Street. So is it safe to say that 4PF has been under the radar? Everybody was wondering, why did 4PF disappear off the music scene? Lil Baby started branching away from him. Now, when the YSL trial was happening, don't forget, there were several incidents that were tied to 4PF that was actually occurring. Children being hit, broad day incidents right there in the middle of the streets. It was happening non-stop. When you turn the news on, as soon as YSL trial was on, you heard about another 4PF member doing what? Another dumb incident. So, is it safe to say that Lil Baby did what he was supposed to do by actually creating that distance? Or is he just another piece that's about to be put on the puzzle? So if common sense was coming, he probably already knew that this was coming. Now, even more interesting, I'm not saying that he's responsible, but ask yourself this, did he know it was coming? Now, he knew he was being watched. We watched it with the Young Thug YSL Rico trial. He knew. He started creating that distance with 4PF, making sure that he created that separation from the actual label and those from the streets. Even more interesting, back in 2022, a fan actually said this to him. Now, as you sit and read this, let that sink in. You see his response? He said, "On the guy I can judge him." So hopefully he still got that same faith and mindset as he's going through this situation today. But even more interesting, as you see, Lil Baby took no time to actually respond to the fans with the rumors and allegations. As I said, I'm not saying he's responsible, but hey, neither was Thug. He was just the alleged head. Who was the alleged head of 4PF? That's dead. Now, Lil Baby actually responded and said to the fans, posted on his IG, "Thanks for all the concerns. Please don't be misinformed by fake news. I'm overly good." Now, I do believe he's still being watched when it comes to this whole situation from that incident, but I do not believe that the feds actually did pick him up and take him in for any type of question. So when he says he's good, again, he was the victim of this situation. He was shot at. Doesn't that sound familiar? But again, let the narratives get painted and get the words twisted, you'll hear the police say, because he went over there, you're responsible. You knew better, you're responsible. You're the major artist, you knew better. You knew this was a possibility as kids out, you're responsible. Think about this, they popped out to see who, not to mention the video that came out when everybody was showing when he pulled up with all the big cyber trucks, the Rolls Royce truck, the location was dropped. So if the ops wasn't hip to him being over there, the location was dropped. The even more interesting and ironic thing about it is all of this happened over what? Disrespect from another set. Sad situation, 2 teenagers gone. And it is tough to say who's to blame, but one thing they are blaming is rap music and rappers. Now it's interesting that Atlanta rappers are definitely all over the streets and all over the radars when it comes to the police. Even more interesting if you pay attention to what's really going on with Lil Baby. Man, is he actually getting a fair hand? Or was this just part of the game? Now one thing we all knew was he said that it was hard for him to come out of the streets. And one thing about being in the streets, when you're in them, it's hard to come out of them. Now, it's sad because the people that actually just threw their lives away to take the lives of 2 children, 7 people responsible. Y'all missed the target. One person makes the call. Y'all go do the lick and blow the mission. 2 kids. 3 kids actually impacted. Luckily, 1 survived. 2 succumbed to their injuries. All over rap beef from the streets. Is rap the actual blame for this? Is Lil Baby actually on his way to actually catch a Rico with the state or the actual feds? My personal opinion, too early to call. But what I will say is 4PF. Even more sad thing about this situation that I want y'all to pay attention to is, it doesn't matter whether it's the gang or the rap money, nothing can replace the two lives that were actually impacted and taken from their families. Till next time, remember, y'all jump in the comments. Let me know y'all's thoughts. Should 4PF be responsible? Is Lil Baby on his way to catching a Rico, or is he actually still dodging? Until next time, remember, the life you save might be your very own. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. If you're not subscribed, tap that like button, hit that notification, and scroll down to all so you won't miss a drop whenever we drop. And as always, remember, the greater the height, the greater the weight. I'm your host, Jay. Gone.
Several of the individuals in the city that are involved in some of these hybrid rap performance groups are involved in certain conflicts throughout the city. So us as a city of Atlanta, we do want to be proactive in making sure that our gang unit is on scene and at the on front of any potential matters that could escalate as a result of a shooting of this nature.
Woke Folks says children and other bystanders were also on scene of the music video when the about 30 shots rang out. And as police try to piece together who's responsible and what led up to the shooting, neighbors we spoke to say the violence is getting out of hand.
It's ridiculous that you can't come outside and have a good time or show some love in the neighborhood because you always want to argue, fight, and shoot and kill, and that's a problem. They need to take these damn guns off the street. That's the biggest problem.
Man, shit ain't got serious, man. You hear me, man?